Hi, I'm Abby. I'm a fourth-year undergraduate in English at Carleton. I have my concentration in creative writing, and I'm also the social media assistant for the department. I'm reacting to the trailer for Wuthering Heights, the new movie coming out on Valentine's Day from Emerald Fennell.
What should you do, Heathcliff? If you were rich?
I suppose I'd do what all rich men do. Live in a big house. And be cruel to my servants. Take a wife.
A wife? What wife?
Heathcliff. You're not enough. Not for her.
Okay, I really like the style so far. This shot is like so interesting because it has this really dramatic, kind of intense, almost campy sunset, very reminiscent of like Harlequin romance novels from like the 60s and 70s. So they're already really leaning into that romantic aspect of it. But the issue with that is that Wuthering Heights is almost an anti-romance. Heathcliff and Catherine are both characters that are extremely erratic and cruel and impulsive. They're not necessarily people you want to be rooting for. So I'm interested to see if she kind of subverts this tendency towards romance and romantic visual and narrative tropes, or if she kind of sticks with it and changes a bit about the novel.
Mr. Lincoln asked me to marry him. Heathcliff is gone. You must accept it.
The costuming is so interesting too. We're really seeing a lot of this with like adaptations these days. A great example is like the 2022 Persuasion adaptation from Jane Austen, where like the dialogue and other elements of the film get kind of modernized for new audience appeal, young viewers who might not have read the books before. And it's a similar like Bridgerton phenomenon, right? Like these aren't necessarily period accurate pieces, but the costuming is still undoubtedly really gorgeous. And Margot Robbie looks really great. Okay, he calls her Kathy here, which is really interesting. There is another character, I believe, he names his daughter Kathy, I think. Or one of the daughters gets named Kathy. It's been a while since I've read it. But the casting of Jacob Elordi is really controversial, I know that much. I actually have more mixed feelings about it. A lot of people are pointing out that Heathcliff in the novel is really racialized. Emily Bronte describes him as being of Lascar or like gypsy descent, which nowadays would be sort of Southeast Asian or Indian. What Bronte has to say about race is up to interpretation though, and depending on how you read the book, it might be more positive or more negative. And so I think Emerald Fennell, despite sort of denying this opportunity for representation, might actually be dodging a bullet, being sort of a white woman behind the camera. Heathcliff is meant to represent everything in society that is kind of either cast aside or repressed, right? Like he has a temper, he is poor, he is racialized, and he is violent as well. He is an embodiment of all of the desires that are seen as lacking restraint or lacking civility. And Emily Bronte was doing something amazing for her time writing about this as a woman author when she wasn't really expected to know anything about sex. And she wasn't allowed to show that she knew anything about sex. And so for Emerald Fennell to kind of bring this sort of repressed element to Heathcliff, to portray him as the sort of return of the repressed, is great. I think it's maybe a bit more than just the erotic, and that's where she's maybe denying herself the opportunity to go a bit deeper, but it does potentially avoid some problems with the representation of Heathcliff as racialized.
Why did you leave me?
Why did you betray your own heart?
The Charli XCX music is crazy. I really like this choice just because it's funny to me. Again, like heavily leaning into that sort of romance idea, kind of modernizing the soundtrack for audiences. I understand it. I'm a little wary of it, to be honest, but I do think it's certainly a way to get people talking.
Where is the obstacle?
Whatever our souls are made of, is mine are the same.
I will not stand for that fiend. I will not have you near her.
I'm really surprised how much she's playing with color here. Like, it's a very colorful trailer. There's lots of really highly visually stylized shots. It makes sense for her. If anyone has seen Saltburn, this is very typical to Emerald Fennell's directorial style. But I kind of was expecting something a little more muted, so I'm glad that she's not shying away from color.
Did you think it would stop me?
Okay, there's a lot of little shots here I'm seeing that are very, very erotic. There's something to be said about the decision to kind of focus on their relationship, the tumultuous nature of their romance. But I think it's a little, like I said before about the Harlequin romance novel being a sort of inspiration for her visually, it's also kind of affecting her decisions narratively in terms of what to adapt. I don't think we got anything like that. Like, there was no sex in Wuthering Heights. They did not depict even an implication necessarily. It was more just emotion and the kind of erratic behavior being a metaphor. And you can interpret that as sex, as a metaphor for desire and for lust in a way that women weren't allowed to kind of portray back then. But it is certainly a choice, that's for sure.
So kiss me, and let us both be damned.
They are pulling quotes directly from the book, though, I will say that. I've caught, I think, 2 so far. And I do notice there's a lot of Catherine in white. There is a lot of the marriage and the kind of marriages that we see in the book. This would be especially important for Emily Bronte. The marriage plot was a huge thing that especially a lot of women writers had to adhere to at the time. If you don't know what that is, it's like basically all your characters in your book had to end up married, or like your main characters had to end up married by the end. And they're entering kind of the Victorian period, on the cusp of it, where like it's very much about civility and propriety and, you know, sexual purity. So it's certainly interesting, and I think that I'm not completely discarding her ability to play with that and to kind of subvert the romantic tropes that we've seen so far in this trailer, but I am a bit cautious. The last thing I'll say, which is really interesting, is that she puts the title of the film in quotation marks, and this annoys me. As an English major, you always put your film or movie or book titles in italics if you're writing an essay. But I think this speaks more directly to the fact that she is adapting this more loosely, and it's going to be a film, hopefully a good one, but maybe not accurate to the books or something more loosely inspired. So if you're looking for a faithful adaptation, I might try a different one, or not get your hopes up too much.
He must be very rich indeed. I suppose he shall fall in love with me.
This is so typical Catherine, me like, I suppose he shall fall in love with me. Like, the point of Wuthering Heights to me, when I first read it in high school, was that Heathcliff and Catherine are both kind of awful people. This is an anti-romance. You're not meant to root for these characters necessarily, despite understanding why they might want to be together.
I suppose he shall fall in love with
you.
It would be nice to be rich. What should you do, Heathcliff?
What?
If you were rich?
Suppose I'd do what all rich men do. I'd live in a big house. And be cruel to my servants. Take a wife.
A wife? What wife?
Aye.
Heathcliff here is at least being very honest about, like, not only his intentions, which will definitely influence his actions later on. He acts out in complete violence. He yearns for that life, and I think Catherine really sees something in him that she resonates with. Like, there's always a question to me of how much does Catherine really love Heathcliff and how much does she just want to be him? She also has that desire that he has, not just in terms of like erotic desire, but the desire for a comfortable life, the desire for each other, the desire for power. And these power relations are so persistent throughout the novel, not just between them, but between everyone they interact with.
I've always looked fondly on Rose from the Crown.
The landlord's daughter. She's quite the plainest girl I ever laid eyes on, and dull too. Shockingly dull. She's practically a simpleton. I cannot sit here all day talking nonsense with you. After all, the Lintons may call on me at any moment.
The Lintons mention was really appreciated. I love that. If you don't know, like, the Lintons are going to be really crucial to the story. But also I love Catherine here just kind of walking off in a fit when she's not getting the kind of reaction that she wants from Heathcliff, and she's not getting the answers that she's hoping for. That dynamic is always really interesting. Again, like, even in their dialogue, it's all about power. Like, what do they want from each other and how are they going to get it? So there have been other adaptations of Wuthering Heights. I remember one specifically with Kaya Scodelario, and that did actually cast Heathcliff as a person of color, which was really interesting and I felt enriched the adaptation. Without that element, I'm not sure where Emerald Fennell is left to go in terms of making this a movie that explores something beyond the sort of classic Harlequin romance type of repressed erotic desire. But if you're a Wuthering Heights fan, let me know in the comments what you guys think, if you're excited for this movie, and make sure to like and subscribe.